We have news to get to, though. Let's talk about financial stuff. You wanted to bring up an article about New York Community Bank.
Yeah,
Is
this
true?
is something I wanted to bring up a couple weeks ago, and then I lost all my notes, and then I saw something else. Or actually, I think it was another conversation with a client, because we get asked this all the time. We said, well, why should we do really anything else that's not bank CDs? Because I can get 5.5% or 5 or 6 or whatever in these ultra short-term bank CDs. And we've said this multiple times. We've had to say this in appointments. We've said it on the show. They're not doing it because they want to better your situation. They're doing it because the banks are hemorrhaging money. And we finally have the best example possibly to demonstrate this point. Because you had SVB, you had First Signature, whatever those banks were in 2023. We talked about how the FDIC wasn't actually the one that bailed them out because their coffers went up in 2023 somehow. But right now, with the talks of New York Community Bank failing, there was another article I saw that says online savings accounts for the highest interest, and New York Community Bank is the best bank to open a new online savings account because they have the higher interest rate. And this is a couple weeks ago, so who knows if things have changed. But they were offering 5.55% or something like that, which was one of the best, if not the best, for online bank accounts. And this is a bank that's actively in the news failing. So,
and they even had Steve Mnuchin, which, if you remember that name, that was one of your elected representatives or your government officials. Steve Mnuchin piled like $1 billion into the bank just a couple months ago. It's not saving it. It's still going. Diane, my neighbor Diane, I hope you're listening to this episode. In New York Community Bank, we've been talking about a great deal about the banks. They're in deep, deep trouble. We used to bring it up every single week. I mean, we've had more pressing things lately, but we got to get back to it. First of all, when you get a 5-month CD, when you get a 7-month CD, and you see those rates, the rates, if you're getting 5%, they're based on APY, which is annual percentage rate. So those might not turn out the way you think. If you get a 7-month CD, you're not getting all of that 5% unless you roll it, and then you're taking a chance they're not going to raise rates on the next 7th term. So that's weird. And then something else to look at. How come? Why don't you explain to me right now why, if I do a 5-month CD or a 7-month CD or a 1-year CD, the rates are higher than if I do a 3-year CD or a 5-year CD? Are we in an interest rate window? Do we think that they're going to lower interest rates still? And by the way, we'll get back to the banks in a second. The answer to that is probably not. You've government, if you're listening, Jerome Powell, you need to hear this. I'm going to send a link to Jerome Powell and see if he responds to it. Janet Yellen, if you're back from China and having soup over there, you need to hear this. I'm gonna sum this up. You are in deep, deep trouble right now. Your choice, and this is oversimplifying, but your main choice, and I did take Economic 101 in high school. Apparently I didn't take auto shop. So your choice is you lower interest rates, right? Help the people. The credit card debt is starting to tip. The default ratio is going through the roof. Research the Philadelphia Fed and look up their latest numbers for credit card debt from 23, and so far fiscal year 24. It's getting very, very scary. We are living on credit cards, and the interest rates are very high, and people are not able to pay them. And finally, just now, the credit card companies are starting to stop giving out new credit. They're like, oh yeah, as much as we want to keep this facade going and making it look like Bidenomics is working and everything's going okay, but it's really not. There's cracks in it. But anyway, so here's your thing, Jerome and Janet. If you lower interest rates, we're going to go into a recession. If you raise interest rates, we're going to go into hyperinflation. I mean, is that kind of, your choice is...
Diamond, one of those articles you sent me at the end, he talks about what will happen if they raise rates. And he says that if rates raise an additional 2%, that's going to wipe out about 20% in value across the board for assets for banking carriers.
The line is, remember, a simple 2 percentage point increase in rates essentially reduced the value of most financial assets by 20%. That's huge. And certain real estate assets, we bring that up, especially office real estate, they call it CRE, commercial real estate, may be worth even less to the effects of recession and higher vacancies. also remember that credit spreads tend to widen, sometimes dramatically, in a recession. What is our soft landing? We're still waiting for the soft landing. Is this the best it's going to get? Jamie Dimon also came out yesterday and said that he thinks we're going back to the 70s. He's worried about stagflation. When there's stagnant, nothing's going to move, and the inflation's high. That's the best thing we can hope for? Is that we get stagflation and not a recession or hyperinflation? I mean, we're in trouble in this country. And my whole thing is, when you and I have talked about it for 6 years now, you're like, there's always something to worry about. I'm like, I agree, but there's never been this many. We also, we're not going to have time today to bring it up, but, World War III is still on the table. Iran, Israel, that all blew over last week, but it's not over. China going into Taiwan. I've got a little article to get to.
Plenty of oil reserves and ammunition and regular cash reserves to fund an additional war. So we'll be fine.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I over worry about nothing. We have what's estimated to be 17 days of oil in the Strategic Oil Reserve.